Yo, what's up? Welcome to the Rick Thorne podcast. Here today, chilling out. I'm going to tell you a story about how I first got sponsored back in the day, what it was like back in the day to get sponsored compared to what it's like nowadays. I had this thought and I wanted to share it, and I don't think that a lot of people nowadays really understood how difficult and how complicated it was being a BMXer in the Midwest in the 80s, trying to build a resume, trying to get sponsored, and what it took. It wasn't as simple as like having an Instagram or a Facebook page or a website, because we didn't have the internet. So you had to do it a different way. And the way that I did it was, well, first off, I just want to say I was very lucky to grow up around Dennis McCoy. He's like the absolute OG of BMX. He became the number one pro in 1980. I think it was 1985, maybe. And so, you know, a homie that you've been riding with for a few years turns out to become the number one pro in the world, and he was the first sponsored rider outside of California at that time. It inspired me. I was like, dude, if he could do it, I can do it. Like, no way, this is amazing. And I was so happy for him, but I wanted that life too, you know, and I didn't know how to go about doing it. I had to figure it out. And I remember I took a class at school called mass media, and it was a class where they taught you how to do resumes and taught you about like media and marketing and commercials and sponsorships and stuff like that. And that's probably the only thing that I'd taken from school to this day and applied in life, you know? Like I haven't applied like trigonometry to anything. You know? That class, mass media, that was it. And so this is how I did it, man. This is how I did it. I had to work a job to get enough money to go to the contests. And along that way, you had to pay for your own bike parts, because in the late 80s, once the industry took a crash, it was hard to even get like a free pair of handlebars from somebody. And the only way that you would get noticed is if you went to the contest, because that's what the magazines covered, and you would hope to land a photo in the magazine to help build your name and help build who you were, to help build towards getting sponsors. So the way I did it, man, is I worked in the Olive Garden forever. I bussed tables, and I lived in my mom's basement. I didn't have a car, and I rode my bike to work. And I was on a mission, dude. You know what I mean? I was on a mission. I just wanted to ride. It's the only thing that made me feel good in my life. And I was just trying to figure out my own way and my own path. And so what I had to do was save up enough money to go to the contest. But that was like barely getting there. It wasn't like I had a hotel. It wasn't like sometimes we drove with a bunch of dudes in a car. I wasn't always flying. There was a lot of driving at the same time. Sleeping in cars, sleeping in people's houses, sleeping on other people's floors, you know, in their hotel. If you knew someone lucky enough to have a hotel. And so, like, dude, I would save money and I would go out and I didn't party, I didn't drink. Like I said, I didn't have a car, I didn't have a girlfriend. I was focused, man. I wanted out. I wanted this lifestyle. I wanted to make it happen. This is the way that I had to do it. This is the formula, the way that I had to get done. And there was no other way. So you had to, let me back up a second. First off, you had to have a backyard that would allow you to build ramps in the backyard. And then if you had a backyard that someone would say, okay, cool, we can build ramps here, you had to get the wood and the tools and the time and the knowledge to build it. And we just went for it. We just went for it, dude. I was lucky enough to have a quarter pipe in my backyard. I talked my parents into letting me build one. And me and my dad built the first quarter pipe that I rode. And I think I might have been around 12 years old. And so, like, yeah, so the reason why I brought that up is that you had to learn the tricks. You had to get the tricks to be good enough to go to the contest, because we didn't have skate parks. There wasn't a skate park in every city or county or state or multiple parks and cities to where you could just roll up and ride or skate or whatever. you had to really like dig deep. You had to really like pave your own way. You had to. Everything was DIY. Everything was DIY. It was crazy, dude. Like we created our own scene, and we just all were so enthusiastic about riding that that's all that mattered. It was just riding. And I remember like, getting good enough to where I could do shows and then saying, okay, I'm doing shows. There were like just little local bike shop shows. It wasn't making any money. I talked to this bike shop that was called Continental Bicycles, and I rode for them, and we did some shows and some quarter pipes, a handful of shows. Though I was 15, and my reward or my pay for that was I got like, I don't know, 15% off like bike parts at the shop. I actually still have my outfit for Continental bikes, which is crazy. And anyhow, yeah, dude, I'm just trying to lay it out how different everything was back then. Just how, the energy was still there, the enthusiasm was still there. The whole reason why we rode wasn't for anything but the feeling, But we were chasing, at least me, I was chasing a lifestyle that I didn't even know what that consisted of. I just knew I wanted to ride, and I was trying to figure it out. And like I said, this is a time where hardly anybody was sponsored, because after the late 80s, or during the late 80s, BMX sales crashed, and all the people got rid of their teams. There was only a couple dudes making a living at it. So it was very slim pickings. And so anyhow, you had to have a backyard, and you had to build your stuff, right? And you had to get good enough to go to the contest. And then once you went to the contest, you had to place, and you had to network, and you had to get to know people. And like I said, this is before internet. So if you heard of a dude like in Iowa that shredded, or a dude in Illinois, or a dude in Nebraska, or Wisconsin, or whatever, you knew about these scenes just through, well, actually you knew about a scene through a zine, because zines were really popular. And you would start to like hear things about people, and anytime you got to ride with somebody, it was special. It was like, who are you, and where are you from, and what's your scene like? And it was interesting, and it was fun, and it was really exciting, And just getting good enough to be in a contest, you built these ramps in the backyard, and now you saved up your money, bought some tables, and now you're paying your own way to the contest. Oh, whoa, you just got hurt. Oh, whoa, you just got hurt. Now you got to pay for your own hospital bills. And you're just like, dude, like, it was a never-ending grind. When I used to work at the restaurant, people would say, hey, why don't you come next door to Minsky's Pizza? We're all going to have some beers. I didn't drink. And I thought, like, I worked so hard for this $30 I just made. I don't want to go spend it on beer. I'm saving up for this contest, I was on a mission. And so that's what it was like. And so what it was like to be sponsored was, okay, so let's say I go to this contest and I placed good. I made the finals. Or even if I didn't make the finals, then I got something for a resume. I'm starting to build a resume. I'm going to these events. I'd already competed some local events, so I had that on my resume. But I wanted to go where the big dogs were, because I felt like if I went where the big dogs were, that's going to put me in the big dog category, and that's where I want to be. And so I like friggin', dude, it was crazy. Like I get some coverage. I placing at a contest, and I started to build a resume. And then I remember I landed my first photo in a magazine. It was from the Wayne, New Jersey 1988 AFA contest, and I got the overall. And Tony Donaldson from BMX Plus, my good friend Tony, to this day, he printed that photo with the caption that said something along the lines, Rick Thorne might not be a name you're familiar with, but if he keeps ripping candy bars like this, that'll change. First place 18 in overall expert. So I got the overall title there. And that was it, man. That's all I needed. And that had been 3 years of going to contests, because I started in 85. 88, I landed a photo in a magazine. I'm starting to get something. I'm starting to get somewhere. I'd had these local contests and the AFA contests that I'd gone to, whether I placed good or not. I got a resume now. So you put together your resume, you go and you Xerox the photo from the magazine, right? This is Xerox style, bro. There's no digital. There's no scanning. There's no email. We didn't even have email. You'd have to call the company up and say, hey, who's the team manager for, Airwalk shoes or whatever? And they had to say, oh, it's this person. And then you'd have to leave a message, and they leave a message on your answering machine. And it was crazy, dude. Like no cell phones, nothing. And I remember the first sponsor I got, dude, I just blindsided completely, put together my own, like I put together these packets that like had me writing some local coverage from a local magazine or local newspaper, and then BMX Plus magazine, and then my highlights, and then like a headshot I shot with a disposable camera. And I would send these packets out just blindside to companies, just saying, hey, who can I send this to? Call and get a name and just send it in. And sometimes I didn't even talk to the person I sent it to. I just sent it in, just trying to promote myself or promoting myself. And I remember the first sponsor I got was with Power Bar, dude. And I had sent them a resume, and I didn't hear anything back. If I didn't hear anything back, I was just like, well, I guess they're not interested. You know, I wasn't smart enough to be like, I need to do a follow-up call like I would now. Nowadays, you got to do like 20 follow-up calls or 20 follow-up DMs. Anyhow, Power Bar sent me this box, dude, and they said, yo, you are on our photo incentive program. I'm like, what is that? What does that mean? They're like, if you get a photo in the magazine and it's this big, or a full page, or color, or black or white, or the cover, it's all different amounts of what you would make. And I was like, what? And you get so many bars a year. I was like, no way. I get like this many Power Bars a year? What? I was hyped. So what I did was, I was friends with Ride Magazine and BMX Plus. And I called them up after I got on Power Bar. And I said, hey, look, at the next contest, I just got sponsored by Power Bar. And I know you guys have a news section of like what's new and what's not new. And I'd never heard of anybody that was sponsored by Power Bar and BMX. So what I did is I said, look, if you guys shoot a photo of me and put it in the news section, like that'd be rad. I could wear my hat and I could promote and I could make like $75. And they're like, all right, we'll throw you the bone, dude. We got you. I was like, what? For real? Word? So this is how it went down. The next contest in the news section, I got to dig up these magazines. You see me with my hat on. Rick Thorne just signed a Power Bar. I had this Power Bar shirt on, and the next one, Power Bar. And it was like, it became a kind of a joke in the industry of like, Power Bar was going to pay me, but no one was doing that. And so what happened was I shot the photos for the magazine, and then I had to wait a couple months for that magazine to come out, and then Xerox it, send it in, and wait a couple more months to get like $75. But when I got that check, dude, I was like, what? I actually made money riding my bike. I was blown away. It's blown away. I remember I paid my utility bills with that 100 and something bucks I made off of those two magazines. And I was like, okay, I'm onto something. I got this, now I can build it. I got one person that bit. All right, now I got the next. Now at the time, I was riding for Hoffman Bikes, but you have to understand, we were still building that brand, and bike sales were still on the rise. It wasn't until the X Games came around to where like all these companies started doing better. Whether you like to hear that or not, that was a fact. That once mainstream media kind of got a hold of what we were doing, the sales went up, and that's when I was able to actually make money as a sponsored rider from a bike riding company. But before then, it was like no dice, dude. You were lucky to get like at least me, I was lucky to get like, you know, anything, a set of tires. And I was like, what? I was on cloud nine. I remember R.L. Osborne gave me a pair of Hammer shin pads at the 1988 finals, which is actually in 89, and it was in Irvine. I remember, I think Vision Streetwear sponsored it. That's the one Matt Hoffman went to, and he got first place amateur, pro, and high air, which was crazy. He dominated. And RL gave me these shin pads, and I was like, what? RL Osborne just gave me shin pads? And I felt like I'm on my way, man. I'm on my way. And that was the same year that I got like a photo in the magazine. In 88, I'd been the overall pro for an 18 over expert. Like things started to happen. And that's just how it was, man. That's how it was to be sponsored, to be able to do what you love to do, you know, it's just a different grind. And I saw a lot of people that were really, really good, that had like so much potential. And in my opinion, I always felt like they were better than me. I felt like a lot of guys I rode with were better than me at the time, but there were no opportunities, man. There was no Instagram where you can create your own image and create your own thing about yourself of like who you are. And there's no way to do like a modeling photo holding your bike, with logos of sponsors everywhere. It was different, dude. It was 100% different. And I'm glad that I lived in that era and that time. And I'm glad that you could contact people and get sponsored and get known and get recognized and make a living at this sport of BMX quicker than I had to. I'm not, by any means, I'm not that bitter dude that's like, well, I did it that way, so you have to do it that way. Never been that way. I feel like, things grow and things change, and I'm glad that it's grown in a way that it has, and I think there's still got a lot more growing to do. I think that BMX is a very tough sport, and it's a sport that's demanding on your body, and it's very competitive. So with little rewards sometimes. The reward is that internal feeling of like, yeah, that felt awesome. Oh my God, I can't believe I pulled that off. I'm stoked. But back then it was just a grind, and it was just like, not give up, don't give up. No injuries. I walked them off, man. No injuries got me down. Dude, I could go on and on. I am going to go actually on and on in other podcasts of mine about injuries. But this is specifically about being sponsored and what it took to make that happen. And, it was just different, and I will say this to anybody out there. Once you get sponsored, that's half of it, or less than half of it. It's keeping it, and reinventing yourself and staying on top of your game and not being predictable and, exploring new ideas and being creative and growing. That's why I have such a strong longevity with all of my sponsors. It isn't just like, oh my God, you did this biggest, sickest trick, therefore we're going to throw you all this money and these sponsorships. I've been able to layer things completely different because I'm from the old school, and I'm from a way of like when there were different types of characters in the sport, and the grind was different. And, learning through the years that like, since you've been around longer, or as long as I have, you say, well, I want to do this the rest of my life. What do I have to do? Like, what do I have to reinvent myself in order to stay in the game? And that goes back to my competitive career. I competed 24, 25 years straight, injuries, all of it straight. And it just got to the point where I felt like I was just kind of repetitious, and I just didn't feel like I was growing as a person, as a rider. And I stopped. But, I did 25 years, which is a very long time. And I wanted to say to myself and the world that there's more to BMX than just a contest. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of living. There's a number of things that come with it, and contests are just one element of that. So, but back in the day, going back to the sponsorship thing, that assessed a value. That was your value. What did you get in the contest? How did you place? That's just where it was at the time. That's just, there were some people in the sport, don't get me wrong, that were able to be in the sport and ride and stuff, but they really didn't make that great of a living at it. And maybe if they weren't competing, then they got involved in the industry side of things, where working for a company or working for a magazine or a brand of some sort. But the reality is, if you wanted to be sponsored back in the day, and when I say back in the day, I'm talking about the 80s, bruh. Like through the 90s, all the way up, all the way up until things have changed. But for a long, long time, it was all contest driven. And that's how I did it, man. That's how I did it. And I'm proud of the fact to say that that's how I did it. And I've learned a lot. And I want to share that with anyone out there that, the opportunities you have now may seem more competitive, but there's a lot easier for you to get noticed, and a lot easier for you to communicate, and a lot easier for you to reach out to people and sponsors. Even to this day, I reach out to people on Instagram to be sponsored by them. I reach out to people constantly. I am my own manager, and I've learned all of those skills from that friggin' mass media class in high school. Crazy. But yeah, that was the grind, dude. And that's how it went down, and that's how I did it. And that's why I'm still around today, and I don't plan to go anywhere. Thanks a lot for listening to this podcast. It's short but sweet. We're looking at about a little over 20 minutes. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned and subscribe. I'm going to have more stories and more things that I'll be talking about, more people I'm going to interview. Anyone out there, stay true to yourself and stay rad. All right, peace out.